They told you a 9-to-5 job was security, a stable path, a responsible life. But here's what they didn't say. The 9-to-5 system was designed in the 1800s, not to empower you, but to control you. Factory owners needed discipline. Schools were built to train obedience. And somehow that blueprint still runs your life today. So the real question isn't how to succeed in the system. It's this: who profits when you stay exactly where you are? They didn't build it for freedom. They built it for efficiency. And it started in the factories. In the early 1800s, the world changed faster than people could adapt. Steam engines roared, assembly lines multiplied. The age of industrial empires had arrived. But the workers, they weren't ready. Most came from farms, trades, or small family businesses. They worked by rhythm, not by whistle, by seasons, not by schedules. Now they were expected to clock in, stand still, follow instructions, repeat, repeat, repeat. It didn't go well. Factory owners complained. Too many mistakes, too much talking, too little discipline. So they reverse-engineered a solution, not through better management, but through behavioral design. They realized something chilling. You don't need chains when you have structure. What emerged was a model built not to inspire, but to contain. Workers were treated like machine parts, replaceable, predictable. You didn't need initiative, you needed obedience. But how do you mass produce obedience? You start early. Enter the school system. Most people think school was created to uplift society, but history tells a colder truth. Modern public education, as we know it, was based on the Prussian military system. Its goal wasn't knowledge, it was compliance. Students were lined up like soldiers, taught to sit still, raise hands, ask for permission. Not to think critically, but to follow procedures. Every bell wasn't just a schedule, it was a signal. A signal that your time was not your own. A signal that someone else would decide what mattered. Horace Mann, the man who imported this system to America, believed the state should be the ultimate authority in a child's life. His words, "The state is the father of children." Let that sink in. From childhood, you were trained to be managed, to perform on cue, to memorize answers, not ask questions. And as this structure took hold, something else quietly disappeared. Imagination, risk, self-direction. Not because you weren't capable, but because you were never meant to be. The factory model didn't end in the 19th century, it just evolved. Desks became cubicles, supervisors became middle managers, uniforms became suits. But the blueprint stayed the same. Work starts at 9, ends at 5, repeat, repeat, repeat. So here's a question. If you were designing a system to create predictable, obedient citizens, what would you build? Would you teach them how money works? How to challenge authority? How to create something of their own? Or would you teach them to follow instructions, chase gold stars, and fear failure? You already know the answer. And if this is starting to feel a little too familiar, you're not alone. That unsettling feeling in your chest, that's the script cracking, and we're just getting started. Pause here, because if this is the kind of truth they never taught you in school, you're in the right place. Hit like, subscribe, and stay alert. You're watching Bull Secrets, and the next chapter reveals how the system sold you a dream to keep you exactly where you are. The factory walls faded, but the blueprint stayed. As the 20th century unfolded, something strange happened. The age of smoke and steel gave way to glass towers and polished floors. The machines got quieter. The uniforms got sharper. And the control system? It got smarter. They didn't need to force obedience anymore. They sold it. It started with a new myth, one more seductive than fear: the career path. Suddenly, you weren't just working, you were building a future, climbing a ladder, chasing success. But who defined what success meant? Think back. From an early age, they gave you a script. Study hard, get good grades, pick a safe major, land a job, work hard, get promoted, retire. But no one told you who wrote this script or why. Here's the truth. The modern career wasn't designed to unlock potential. It was designed to channel energy into systems that don't belong to you. Think about the language. Climbing the ladder. But what happens when the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall? Or worse, when it has no top? Because for most people, the ladder isn't a path to freedom. It's a loop, a polished version of the same factory floor, just with coffee machines and key cards. You're told to specialize, to focus, to not rock the boat. And every time you ask, "Is this really it?" they tell you, "You just have to pay your dues. Success takes time. Be patient." But patient for what? The average employee today changes jobs every 4 years. Burnout is at an all-time high, and over 70% of workers report feeling disengaged from their jobs. Not because they're lazy, but because the promise feels hollow. You were told there's meaning in your title, pride in your business card, honor in the late nights, the missed birthdays, the quiet resignation of your own dreams. But who does that serve? Here's a number you won't hear in Career Day. In 2023, the 5 richest companies in the world increased their profits by over $600 billion while laying off tens of thousands of workers. And yet, you're told, if you just work harder, one day you'll get there. But there keeps moving. You chase raises that barely outpace inflation, promotions that come with longer hours and shorter lives, and a pension plan you may never live to see. It's not a ladder, it's a treadmill. And deep down, you know it, because no amount of ergonomic chairs or pizza Fridays can hide the truth. You're building someone else's dream. And the illusion is fragile. One unexpected layoff, one merger, one economic shift, and the whole house of cards trembles. So ask yourself, if this system was really built to help you rise, why does it feel like every step costs a piece of yourself? And more importantly, who benefits when you keep believing the next step will finally set you free? Because in the next chapter, we uncover how your dreams, your very identity, have been carefully manufactured, not by accident, but by design. If the system couldn't hold you by force, it had to capture your desire. So it did something far more dangerous than control your time. It shaped your identity. The post-war era brought economic expansion, but it also brought something else, a new kind of propaganda. Not the military kind, the corporate kind. In boardrooms and branding agencies, executives began asking a powerful question. What if we stop selling products and start selling purpose? It worked. Overnight, jobs became more than income. They became who you are. I'm a lawyer. I'm an executive. I'm a creative at a Fortune 500. Notice the shift. You're not describing what you do, you're describing what you are. That wasn't an accident. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, corporations invested billions into reshaping the public's idea of success. Commercials, TV shows, school counselors, all began echoing the same message. Climb higher, buy more, be more. And if your job didn't feel meaningful, that's not the system's fault, it's yours. You just haven't worked hard enough, hustled enough, aligned your passion with your paycheck. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, corporations studied psychology like a science, Maslow's hierarchy, behavioral economics, color theory, not to empower you, to influence you. Advertising went from showing products to showing lifestyles. Not shoes, status. Not a car, you made it. And slowly, something terrifying happened. We stopped dreaming our own dreams. We started outsourcing them to the screen, the slogan, the office hallway. Want to feel fulfilled? Start that side hustle. Make partner. Win Employee of the Month. But every time you hit the goalpost, they move it. You finally buy the car. They sell you a faster one. You get the promotion, now you're working weekends. The algorithm whispers, keep going, you're almost there. But there never comes. Because the system isn't designed for arrival, it's designed for pursuit. And here's the part no one wants to admit. When your identity is built on your career, any threat to that career feels like a threat to you. That's why layoffs feel like personal failure, why switching paths feels like betrayal, why questioning the system feels dangerous. But what if your dream job was never your dream? What if it was planted like a seed, watered with slogans and spotlighted by screens? What if the ladder was always meant to look golden from the bottom? In the next chapter, we follow what happens when this illusion starts to break. Because when identity collapses, something darker takes its place, and it's called burnout. Burnout was never a bug. It was a business model. By the time you feel exhausted, disillusioned, or numb, the system has already extracted what it needed. And here's the part no one talks about. Burnout isn't just personal, it's profitable. Let's break that illusion. For decades, companies sold hustle as heroism. The late nights, the grind, the weekends sacrificed in the name of ambition. You were told this was strength, that your exhaustion meant you were doing something right. But behind the motivational posters and ping-pong tables, something darker was happening. The modern workplace became a machine for quiet extraction. According to the World Health Organization, burnout is now a global occupational phenomenon. Symptoms: chronic fatigue, cynicism, reduced professional efficacy. In other words, you're drained, you stop caring, and even when you show up, you're not really there. But the system doesn't flinch, because in most companies, your well-being isn't a metric, your output is. The average American employee now gives more hours per week than any generation before, but real wages? Flat. Cost of living? Climbing. Mental health? Collapsing. And here's where it gets sinister. Instead of changing the system, they branded your breakdown. Now there's corporate wellness, yoga at lunch, a meditation app, a seminar on work-life balance, held on a Saturday. But nothing changes the core equation. More from you, less for you. Because burnout isn't a signal for reform, it's a line item. You burn out, you quit. Another candidate takes your place. Fresh, hungry, unaware. Repeat. It's not malfunction, it's planned obsolescence for humans. And the deeper you fall into it, the more the system turns your own mind against you. You start to blame yourself. You think you're not resilient enough, not focused enough, not grateful enough. But let's flip the question. Why is it that in the richest societies in human history, millions feel empty at the end of the workday? Why do people cry in their cars before stepping into the office? Why do burnout forums online read like war journals? Because this isn't personal failure, it's emotional debt, collected by a system that runs on your silence. The corporations know this, and yet, instead of reducing pressure, they rebrand it as high performers thrive under stress. Pressure creates diamonds. Fail fast, move faster. But you're not a diamond. You're a human being, and humans break. And when they do, guess what happens? The system replaces them. Quietly, efficiently, without a trace. Because burnout is cheaper than redesigning the machine. And the worst part? Many will never even realize it happened. They'll blame themselves, try again, push harder, until the system spits them out, older, emptier, and still searching. But what if burnout isn't the end? What if it's the alarm? Because in the next chapter, we meet the ones who saw the code, who walked away and rewrote their own system, not with slogans, but with truth. Some don't make it. They collapse under the weight of a system that was never built for them. But some wake up, not suddenly, but in small, quiet moments. A meeting that feels like déjà vu. A birthday missed again. A voice deep inside whispering, "This can't be it." And that whisper becomes a question. Not how do I get promoted, but why am I even here? That's where the pattern breaks. We spoke with engineers who left six-figure jobs to build something of their own. Bankers who walked away from skyscrapers to regain their time. Mothers, artists, teachers, coders, not looking for a hack, looking for truth. What they discovered wasn't some utopia. It was uncertainty, risk, loneliness, but also clarity. Because when you step outside the system, you see it for what it is. The prestige, the perks, the productivity metrics. They're scaffolding, meant to keep you climbing, but never arriving. The ones who broke free didn't do it with motivation. They did it with deconstruction. They questioned the terms, success, security, professionalism. Who defined these, and who profits when we obey them? They started measuring life differently, not by promotions, by peace, not by salary, by sovereignty. And slowly, the illusion cracked. They realized freedom doesn't start with quitting your job. It starts with reclaiming your mind. Because the deepest trap of all wasn't 9 to 5. It was believing that your worth could ever be defined by a schedule. This doesn't mean everyone has to escape the system. Some can't, some won't, but all can awaken to it. And that's the real revolution. Not rage, but awareness. Not escape, but intention. Because once you see the blueprint, you can choose to follow it blindly or to redesign your life on your terms. That choice won't be easy, and it won't come with applause. But maybe that's the point, because the system was built to reward the obedient, not the awake. And now, the question is no longer, how do I succeed within the pattern? The question is, what happens when you stop playing their game and start building your own? Some systems don't need fences. They just need belief. A belief that this is normal, that this is success, that this is the only way. But once you see the trap, you can't unsee it. So the question is no longer, what will they let you do? It's, what will you choose to build when permission is no longer required? Because the real escape was never the exit. It was the awareness. And if you felt that shift, even for a second, you're already outside the blueprint. Like the video, subscribe. This is just the beginning.